Hey, everybody. Welcome to Chalk Talk with Kim. I'm your host, Kim Davis. Today is October the 4th, and welcome to our weekly time of fun together. I appreciate you, as always, tuning in to Chalk Talk, your source for all things sports information and just to have a really good time. As always, is before we get started with today's show, and I am super excited about our guest who is joining us for the big interview. Before we get into kind of recapping what happened around the NFL this week, especially with the Houston Texans. We'll check in on the Astros and the Rockets. I've got to first remind you how this show is possible. Of course, Affordable Painters is our is our signature sponsor for the month of October. We appreciate them for all of your painting needs. I'll have all the information and a number where you can reach Hillary Como and his team in the chat. And of course, you can always support our longtime partner, I Love Jinka. Our guest today knows a little bit something about that as well. It's a great product if you're having inflammation or you're having issues with joints and pains. If you're in the Houston area, you can find it at HEB. If you're not in Houston, you can go to their website, ilovejinka.com. But if you are in Houston, here's where you find it in the stores.
Here at HEB, in the Healthy Living Department of Probiotics, you can find Jinka 7 days a week.
Yeah. Look at that Jinka sale. Look at that Jinka.
And of course, we don't make any medical claims about Jinka, but we do tell you it's great, it's worth trying. Of course, the main ingredient, the main thing in that product is a turmeric. So it has all sorts of health benefits, and everything in that paste or a capsule is really good for you. Also, today's program is brought to you by Kimmy Treats. It's our company that has vegan popcorn and also some hand-whipped body butter. You can find it in Houston at Sunshine's Vegan Deli, or you can find it on the website at kimmytreats.com. Hey, it's football season, and it's about to be baseball playoff season, and it's basketball season. Actually, it's always a good time to get popcorn. So get something that's healthier for you. It's made with non-GMO popcorn and coconut oil, and you can enjoy it. And all the ingredients are on the label. They're clean products, no fillers and preservatives. Get yours today. All right, so now I'm super excited to invite in a guest. I actually had him on my show back when I was at Channel 2, so I'm very familiar with him. He's a local cardiologist. But he's more than that. He's really into a vision for how you can be healthy and whole. And he does a lot of it through what we put in our bodies. He's got some great stuff coming up. So I'd like to welcome to the show, to Chalk Talk for the first time, Dr. Baxter Montgomery. Dr. Montgomery, thank you for joining me this afternoon. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be the show.
Well, listen, I want to jump right into it because you've got some exciting things coming up. Of course, you've had your heart and wellness, I guess, institute, if you will, in Houston with these state-of-the-art facilities for years. And before we get into the event you have coming up, when did you make this total switch to recognizing, and maybe you've always known that food was really one of our best medicines, and really get your clients and people you work with on a plant-based lifestyle?
It's a great question, and it is a process over time. I think of it as an evolution because I haven't always known it. I went through the typical training in internal medicine, cardiology, cardiac electrophysiology, right here in the world's largest medical center. In part of my training was in Galveston at UTMB. And when I finished training, I went right into private practice. Now, I always knew I wanted to do something with wellness, but I didn't know exactly what that meant. And with a busy practice, taking calls, seeing patients on an emergent basis, doing procedures in the middle of the night, I realized patients were getting sicker despite the fact that our technology was getting better over time. I started reading information in the lay press, different books about natural cures and the like. Some personal, life events, family illness and personal illness issues came up. And so after looking and being inquisitive about this, I came across some information I made some personal lifestyle changes, did a juice feast detox and started consuming a plant-based diet. And I noticed amazing changes for myself. And this was an eye-opener. I started, applying these things to some of my patients who were just some of the sickest patients. The type of patient I saw as a cardiologist and electrophysiologist, these people already had, bypass surgery, multiple stents, et cetera. And, their hearts were, beating at 10% of the life. And so when I started applying these aggressive lifestyle interventions, I saw amazing things happen. It didn't take like months or years, but just days. And so it was at that time, this is, almost 2 decades ago, when light bulbs started to go off. And I said, I had to figure out how to implement this into practice. And it wasn't something easy to do. But one thing led to another. And we started doing, weekend boot camp classes. And then we, had to bring a restaurant in and, food became the core of things. And now we're at a point where we're adding other natural integrative modalities. And again, we continue to see amazing results.
Talking with Dr. Baxter Montgomery, and this is some work he has been involved in quite some time, but you have something that's pretty exciting coming up, Heart and Soul of a Champion. There's a gala, but you're also going to premiere the docuseries. Tell us a little bit about this project, and really the vision for it.
Yeah, thanks. So the issue in the last 2 years, we've noticed some major health issues, since 2019 to now, and even before from 2014 to now, we've noticed a decrease in life expectancy in the United States. And even pre-COVID, from 2019 to 2020, there was a nosedive drop in life expectancy. And then again from 2020 to 2021. And I think in the last 2.5 years, we've seen a 2.6 year reduction in life expectancy in the United States, which is a major. We're noticing a lot through young people are getting ill on a regular basis. So it was, a further eye opener for us. And what we've been doing over the last 2 years is really ramping up our integrative care programs, adding new modalities and things. And we've been trying them out, getting great results. So this open house and docuseries, red carpet gala, is our first showing, a revelation of some of these new modalities. So our open house will be where we open our doors, let people come in and see our new facilities, some of the new modalities that we're doing. Also get a look into our future vision, because our changes, we're not stopping where we are. We're looking to expand operations, expand this type of intervention we're doing. Heart and Soul of a Champion is both an intervention, it's the name of our most our flagship integrative care intervention, and it's also an art form. The intervention is simply this: we bring patients at whatever level of illness you are. We've had heart failure patients, for example, come in, we put them on a detox regimen. We start them on things like infrared sauna and other types of targeted nutritional therapies. But then we get them up and exercise. We start exercising in our facility. We then take them outdoors, sunshine. All these integrated modalities are used at once. And we've been seeing amazing results. Get individuals from the wheelchair to the walker, out walking, heart failure patients, reversing the illness to the fact they're able to come off medications. So what we decided to do is we decided to take this intervention, but then put it in an art form, because people need to see this firsthand. So we put together a film crew. I got a director out of Hollywood. We've got an excellent editing crew. And we've put together the first season of Heart and Soul of a Champion. We brought in some retired athletes, Raymond Waddy from the Houston area, Hall of Famer Darryl Green, Kenny Banks, Wendell Mosley. These gentlemen have participated in athletics, football, and also world-class, track and field, and they're retired. And so the goal was, let's see how close we can get you back to your performance level. Well, when we brought them in, we were surprised, because some of them had more advanced illness than what we knew. So then it went about the process of reversing these illness. And as you'll learn through the docuseries, you'll see what we were able to do with these athletes whom we thought were just, a little out of shape. but actually they were in worse shape than what we knew. But we were confident that our intervention would have an impact. But the goal is to bring people into our facility on a regular basis. So that's season one. We continue to have, multiple seasons. 2023, we're going to have more seasons, and we'll have different people. Everybody has the whole concept of heart and soul of a champion is that we're all champions in our own right, whether it's in the field of law or in entertainment or news. And we all lose a step or two or three or four because of chronic illness. And so our goal is to have people regain the championship, reactivate the champion within themselves. And so that's the vision that we have. Season 2 will be coming out probably toward the end of this year, early next year. We'll probably look at chronic illness in women in that season. So essentially what we want to do is we want to implant this natural approach of disease reversal in the hearts and minds of people to make it commonplace. And the best way to do that commonplace, best way to do that is to show it over and over and over in the context of a docuseries.
So, Dr. Montgomery, let me ask you something. If people are listening, they go, okay, I've heard about stuff before, but it's probably just out of the realm of what I could ever afford. And to them, you say what? Where can you start if you don't have a huge budget?
Well, so we work with people within their budget. First and foremost, we are a regular medical practice. So, we see patients, individuals who come in with their insurance. We have people on fixed income, et cetera. And we start with where you are. Oftentimes, a major misconception is, I can't afford this, I can't afford that. We have a number of different interventions. So, for example, one of the new interventions we're starting is just a group nutrition program. So like $45 a month, $25 that goes to food from our nutrition center, $10 for our online support and coaching, and $10 goes to the group exercise. We have trainers that we're putting on retainer, and these trainers we're working under our supervision, so they get the combined medical supervision, fitness, etc. So something as little as a cell phone bill every month, you can have the integrative approach with our expertise and insight to all of this information with group support. So that's just one example in terms of how we work with people within their budget.
That's awesome, because I think that's a misconception that so many people have. Is like, oh, it's healthy, I can't afford it. You mentioned some athletes that you've worked with, some retired athletes. I saw a little bit of your live last night while I was at the baseball game talking about JJ Watt, who people in the Houston area, really all across the league, are familiar with. In layman's term, can you kind of tell us, he posted something online on Sunday and said it was leaked, so I want to go ahead and share it. He basically had an issue and he had to be shocked back. Is that right?
Yeah, and
there's a technical term for it. So
it's unfortunate HIPAA laws don't apply to famous people, but it's the thing is this: he was diagnosed with atrial fibrillation. I found out by watching. I was looking at a little bit of Sunday football. In fact, I think the Arizona Cardinals are playing, and the announcer mentioned, and the story that I heard through the announcer was that during practice of the prior week, he had started feeling fatigue, and then he went in for an evaluation. He was found to be in an abnormal rhythm called atrial fibrillation. Atrial fibrillation is just the medical term. Atrial means the upper chambers. So the heart has 4 chambers, 2 atria and 2 ventricles. So when the atria are not contracting normally, but are just fibrillating, we call it atrial fibrillation. And that's because it has an elaborate electrical signal. Just think of if you have an electrical short and like your TV starts to show a lot of static, that's an analogy of the heart being in an electrical short. And one or more chambers can be in some erratic contraction. So what that does, that decreases the circulatory efforts of the heart. And with a high-class athlete who's working out and training, if your overall circulation goes down, you're going to feel it. And what he felt was fatigue. So someone did an EKG, saw that he was in this abnormal rhythm. And so one of the treatments is what we call a cardioversion. It's an electrical shock to the heart. And then what we do is, you place pads on the heart and you send an electrical shock, and it shocks the heart back into normal rhythm. Anyway, I think I lost our host here, but with J.J. Watt being young and healthy as he is, I think he's going to be okay. Most of the time, you cardiovert these individuals, so they don't require any more medical therapy. I think we lost our host, but anyway, what I will do is tell you more about our event coming up. If you go to events.montgomeryheart.com, you can learn about our gala and our open house that's going to be from October 19th through October 22nd. The October 19th through the 20th, we'll have an open house at our facility. You can come and look at our technology, view our campus, visit with myself and my staff. Also, on October 21st, we will have the gala. Again, events.montgomeryheart.com will get you information to our event and also get you into the gala. It's going to be held at the Rice University Faculty Club. So we look forward to seeing you there. If you have any questions about this or any questions that's not answered on our website, our main website is montgomeryheart.com, and you can call our office at 713-599-1144. I'm going to place that in the chat, and hopefully Kim Davis will be able to place that in the show notes.
Are back, nothing like technology. All right, so when you were, all right, we had a power surge, so we are back, nothing like technology.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So you were talking about, you were watching the TV on Sunday, you saw the game, and they mentioned about J.J. Watt, and you were talking about what that experience was, because when we think of a J.J. Watt, super healthy, fit athlete, and we hear something happening during the time that he's still playing, not a retired athlete. Tell us again what happened and what we should know about that kind of an incident.
Well, you know, athletes, and I've been asked this question before. Athletes, you know, one, they're human beings as well, and the other thing too is that they put their bodies through lots of stress. So they put their bodies through an extraordinary amount of stress, and you know, when you're working out at that level, you know, physically on a regular basis, putting yourself through that kind of stress, your body also has to be in pristine condition. So there are a lot of things that can happen to athletes, even though they're physically fit. Many of them may consume, say, the standard American diet. There are lots of things in our food, that processed chemicals and the like, that can have an adverse effect on the heart or other parts of the body. There have been a number of other athletes who've been diagnosed with atrial fibrillation. In fact, you know, some medical scientists, you know, have come up with an association between, you know, athletics and atrial fibrillation. I don't really subscribe to that theory. I think, yes, you know, athletes can have, you know, enlarged hearts, or they can have abnormal heart rhythms. However, I think it's due to the fact that it's a combination of the excess stress put on the body in the setting. Many athletes may consume the standard American diet. The reason I emphasize the diet part is that if you have a race car and it's supposed to drive at high speeds and it's under lots of stress, then you're going to have to put the best octane fuel, you know, the highest octane fuel, the best fuel in that race car, the best oil, the best engine, you know, components in that race car. So if someone is putting their body through lots of stress, similarly, you have to put the optimal nutrition in that body. And we often see athletes who, because they're young and physically fit, they can get away with consuming the standard American diet. Now, I'm not trying to criticize J.J. Watt's diet. More athletes today are more conscious of what they're eating. However, I think, in my opinion, they need to be more aggressive with optimal nutrition, reducing pro-inflammatory foods. So inflammation is one thing that contributes to atrial fibrillation. When, as an electrophysiologist over 20 years ago, I used to do catheter ablations on these atrial fibrillation patients with atrial fibrillation. And I would have young patients who come in with early arrhythmias, and I would do a procedure called a burn or isolation of the pulmonary vein. So that would get rid of the atrial fibrillation. That was one of the procedures. However, over time, those patients would then develop recurrent atrial fibrillation. What was the cause? It was persistent inflammation of the heart. And so even though there's an electrical treatment for this, either cardioversion, which is what J.J. Watt underwent, or an electrical ablation, which is another type of procedure, despite these procedures, you can still have atrial fibrillation because there's a systemic or total body effect due to inflammation that can have scarring effects on the heart or electrical abnormalities on the heart that can predispose to atrial fibrillation. That's going to be affected by the food and overall lifestyle. That's why, so you have a young, healthy person with atrial fibrillation, because it's not because they have to be 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years old. You can be very young and have lots of inflammation based on the food you're consuming.
So I think that's really key. The food, like inflammation, is really is a root of illness, and much of that is based on lifestyle and most certainly food. Before I let you get back to doing the life-saving work that you do instead of hanging out here with us all day, there's a person from Dallas area that says, is there a way from someone in the Dallas area to participate using insurance? So is there a way for you to work with people from Dallas?
Yes, we have patients come from all over. We have patients come in every day. We have people come from East Coast, West Coast, the Midwest. We've had some international patients. So the answer is yes. We have patients who live in Dallas who come and see us. And the way it works is this: once you've made one in-person visit, then we can actually follow up doing digital health. We have a digital health clinic where we can follow up with telemedicine. That's on the clinical side. We also have a wellness component that's remote, which is our online support group, which is our Optimal Health Journey online support group and community. And we also have online coaching in which we can coach people through wellness, detox, and the like. So we do a lot of things remote. And a lot of that was born out of the pandemic era when we had to do more things remote. So we follow patients from all over the country.
So I want to, before we go, two things. I want to get back to something you said before we remind people about the upcoming events later this month. You can get started with this optimal nutrition and wellness if you like, you know what, I don't have the budget for a whole big system. For $45, you can get started with something, right? So on the low end, you can get started.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And one thing I like to say is this. I mean, people often, I hear that comment, healthy foods too expensive, healthy foods too expensive. I'll tell you this: healthy food may be more expensive than junk food. However, healthy food, though it's more expensive, is less costly. Mm-hmm. Junk food is less expensive, but more costly. You want to consume something, invest a little bit in your health. If you're paying an extra $1 or $2, it may save you kidneys. It may save you from an amputation. It may save you from dialysis. So the cheap food will cost you more. It's going to cost your health, your overall well-being, and your freedom, and it's going to cost you your livelihood. And so, invest a little more in your health. We know people are cost conscious. Inflation's up. There are a lot of reasons for people to say, well, I can't afford this, that, or the other. But it's really important to invest in your health, because that's your optimal wealth.
And that you can reverse some of these chronic illnesses that we have. Because I think, especially in our community, we think, well, I've got this thing now. Let me just take the medicine for it. You're saying you don't have to live like that.
That's exactly right. People think a lot of these things are genetic. Families pass down illnesses more effectively through recipes than through genes. And these diseases can be reversed. We've seen individuals with many illnesses come who I've had patients on life support in the ICU, and their bodies are able to heal when it's properly nourished to what point they walk out. We've had patients that throws a heart attack who are too sick to be operated on. We put them on a nutritional detox in the hospital. They recover. Patient with heart failure who was given up for hospice, nutritional detox, recover. So if you do the right thing aggressively enough, you can turn these things around. These chronic illnesses should not be as intimidating to us as they are. I want people to understand that they have the power to do what's necessary to reverse these chronic illnesses. They just have to take the first step.
And one of the things you can do if you're in the Houston area later this month, there's not just a gala that you can come to. There's events. I know that there's like a tour of a grocery store. You guys have a lot of things that people can do that are even free to come get the information, get engaged, and learn more about how you can make some healthy choices, some different choices for just a better life for you and your family.
That's exactly right. You can go to our main website, montgomeryheart.com. And you'll see information about the gala there, or you can go to events.montgomeryheart.com, and that's the page for the gala. So events.montgomeryheart.com, that's the page for the gala. And as you mentioned, there are a lot of activities for free. And in fact, the gala itself, even though there are tickets, and I think we have some tickets at $149 still, and I think the price may have gone to $179. But even if you can't afford to come to the gala, you can actually register and go to the gala online. So you can be at the gala remotely. We're going to have a host that's going to interact with you. You're going to have all the information as though you're there. You may have an opportunity to purchase the video of the gala. So we're working very hard to make this information available to anyone who wants it, who's wanting to make use of it.
I'll also put it across all the platforms. The website is in the chat. Dr. Montgomery, thank you for not just being here today, but for the work you do. And we look forward to, I'm going to try to get out to some of the events because I was reading the panelists and the people you have. I think it's going to be great information. So keep up the great work, and thank you for being with us today.
No, thanks for having me, and thanks for helping us get the word out. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Dr. Baxter Montgomery, we'll see you soon, my friend. You guys can go online, go to montgomeryheart.com. You can get all the information. And listen, I read it all. There are, walking tours. There's grocery store tours. There are lectures. There's just a lot of stuff that people can find. Thank you, Mr. Barnes. I don't know if that's Mr. or Miss Barnes from Dallas. I hope that helps you, that you will connect with Dr. Montgomery, and that you can like you said, get that first visit in person. And then after that, they can work with you digitally. So thank you so much for being a part of today's show and getting the information. All right, a couple short break and let you hear from our sponsors. And we're going to come back and talk a little bit of football. You hear from Lovie Smith, Davis Mills, and also we'll talk some Rockets and some basketball. Remember, he talked about inflammation. You've heard me talk about Ginkgo, which is great for reducing inflammation. And Dr. Montgomery actually does use Ginkgo with a lot of his clients. If you're in the Houston area, if you're near an HEB, here's where you can find Ginkgo. If not, you can get it online at iloveginkgo.com.
Here at HEB, in the Healthy Living Department of Probiotics, you can find Ginkgo 7 days a week.
Yep. Look at a lot of Ginkgo sale. Look at that.
That's where you can find Ginkgo if you're in the Houston area at HEB. Remember, if you want a good, healthy snack that tastes good, but it won't be bad for you, right? It won't send you, in a tailspin in terms of inflammation. Make sure you check out Kimmy Treats at kimmytreats.com. And when you get there, here's what you can find. And last, of course, and definitely not least, is Sohum Skincare. If you're in the Houston area in Edo, east of downtown, it's called Sohum Skin. It's got, go see Stephanie. She is the esthetician. She'll look at your face. She'll check out your skin, make recommendations for the right kind of products that you need. and give you like the facial that'll make you never want to go home. So Soham Skin, here's kind of what you can expect. All right, so now we're going to jump over and talk a little bit about those Houston Texans. I know y'all been waiting for it. So the Houston Texans played at home on Sunday. They lost to the San Diego Chargers. Not a game that anybody picked them to win. The final score was 34-27. There were some moments in that game on Sunday. They were down by 27-7. They didn't get off to a great start. Like in the first drive, Davis threw an interception, and a couple plays later, the Chargers converted it to 7 points. That is not how you want to start, right? At home, but really anywhere, because you start off in the hole. And they got down 27-7. It didn't look great. They made a bit of a comeback. You saw some great, if you watched the game, you saw more of Dameon Pierce. He had a 75-yard run for a touchdown. It was exciting. You saw him with some breakaway speed. You saw Davis Mills connect on a deep pass that we don't see that a whole lot. So you saw some good things, but ultimately they did not win this game. So the Texans' record right now is 0-3-1. That one tie is from the week 1 of the season when they had the tie at home against the Colts. So that's 4 games, right? If we're 4 games into the season, and people are already talking about Lovie being one and done, that Lovie and Pep were the worst thing to happen. I need y'all to just stop it. I need y'all to just hold on for a minute. Because here's what happens, and this is what's annoying to me. Have they done everything perfectly? Probably not, because then they would somehow not be human. But let's not pretend that this Texans team is full of top-rated talent. I ask a question, and I'll ask those of you listening today. Who on this Texans team would start for another NFL team? If you have a name, drop it in the chat. I imagine that we can name all the people that we think, and I say all because I don't think that there are very many, would start for other NFL teams without a whole lot of brain work, right? So the idea or the thought that this team is 0-3-1 because they're just so poorly coached, I think it's overstated. Listen, is it frustrating to watch? Yeah, it is. Do I think that they can get a little better? Hopefully. They're not great in terms of talent. And I think that is something that people kind of need to keep in reality. And here's the other thing. For those of you who are calling for Pep Hamilton to have his play calling abilities revoked, really? You guys want Pep Hamilton to call plays for Davis Mills? He's not shown that he's qualified to execute. I don't understand that, because I really believe that people are just, I want to think you know a little bit more about football, and you see what I see. And I guess because I was at training camp with a lot of my colleagues locally, and we saw the same things. We saw that Davis wasn't terribly accurate. We got beyond 12 and 15 yards. Throwing the deep ball is occasionally what he can do. He doesn't have great movement in the pocket. He just doesn't. And he checks down. He doesn't seem to make the right read. He can't find the open play. There are a lot of things he doesn't do well. Now, this is not at all on Davis Mills. I'm not saying everything is his fault. I'm just saying a lot of it has to do with the quarterback, which is why people go so hard to try to find a franchise quarterback. Here's Here's Lovie Smith yesterday talking about the game on Sunday. And he talked about really the fact that they had, a bit of they made the comeback, although ultimately they lost. But there is something to build on. Here's head coach Lovie Smith.
Period of time in the second half where we got ourselves in position to take the lead. That said an awful lot. We're going to hopefully build on that. To get ourselves in that position, though, we didn't start fast. The interception on the offensive side of the ball, but still getting them in a 3rd and long defensively and jumping outside, and then having a 3rd and short and giving up a touchdown pass. that put us on our heels right away, and we didn't handle the first quarter the way we need to. But there are some positive things. We've talked a lot about Damon Pierce. For him to have that type of game, breakout game, we've been waiting for that. And for that to happen, of course, offensive line and everybody responsible for blocking has to do their job. And it was good for him to show that last part of his game, breakaway speed.
All right, so we are having a few little network hits over here in terms of power in the area, but I hope that you are still with me. And that I'll give a second for those of you who may have jumped off to jump back on. That was Lovie Smith talking about the fact that they did have a little something to build on. I know it's easy to say there's so much that he's not doing well or that he's not doing right, I guess. But I also think there's something to be said for the fact that this team did make a bit of a comeback and that this is a team that's devoid of a lot of top-rated talent. Let's just be clear about that. There's been a lot of conversation around Dameon Pierce, and he should have the ball every single time. And why doesn't he have the ball more? And so after the first week of football, after game one, Lovie said, and Pep said, the offensive coordinator, our goal is to make sure that Dameon, he is our starting running back, that he's going to get the ball to have more carries. If you look at who Dameon Pierce was in college, there's a few things that you'll know. He didn't have to really do a lot of blocking, certainly not much pass blocking, which is important here. And when you hear Lovie talk about the fact that it's what you can do away from the ball, they're talking about blocking. And so when they have pass plays, they brought in Rex because Dameon is getting better at pass blocking, but it's something that he's had to learn. And the good thing about him is he wants to learn it. He's picking it up. Every week you see him doing a better and better job at it. Also, he didn't carry the ball 25, 30 times a game when he was at Florida. That's not the kind of back he was. It doesn't mean it's not the kind of back he can be. It just means I think it means they're ramping him up. Now, Lovie did say last week, you think about your starting running back, you look at him being somebody that can carry the ball about 20 times, right? So that's the goal for him. But here is Lovie talking about what he saw from Dameon Pierce this Sunday.
You're talking about the fourth down play, that late. Well, Damon has been in the game for the moment. We're going to play more than one running back. Some plays he's not going to be out there. So happened a few of the plays have been big plays and we didn't handle those right. But Damon on that fourth down play that you're alluding to had nothing to do with the tailback there. We busted an assignment on the line of scrimmage to have a guy go free. As I said on that play yesterday, that was a pass play that the quarterback could possibly even keep the ball on. It had nothing to do with their tailback on that moment right there. I think right now, I think we got Damon involved enough for him to have an impact on the game yesterday. Would you say that? I would.
Coach, you said on David, the plan was to have Khalil Mack blocked on that play, right?
That's what I said.
And so that last question was about Khalil Mack kind of coming free. And so what Lovie's trying to tell those of us at the press conference is that was not the plan, is to leave him uncovered, right? Because you're going, this guy is a pretty good defender. He's a very good defender. The plan was to have him blocked. It was a busted play. That was a miscommunication. They're having a lot of that, right? Communication is my jam, right? So here's another example of how important communication really is. It's important in football games because if there's a miscommunication and something happens like on that play that he was just talking about, that 4th and 1, and Khalil Mack came free, it's because the miscommunication allowed for the coverage to be busted. Like he wasn't supposed to be unblocked. That just wasn't the design of the play. So that is what he was talking about. Also had a chance to talk with Davis Mills after the game on Sunday and Brandon Cook. And here's Davis Mills.
Yeah, just got to find ways to continue executing our jobs. I just overheard Brandon a little bit. We can't turn it on and turn it off when we want to. When we need to go down and score like we did at the start of the second half, we got to do that the whole game. Continue to find ways to get the ball to the guys out in space and let them make plays.
Hey Davis, when the passing game was going well in the second half, how much of a boost does that give you? I know it's a whole team game, but personally, how much does that help you with confidence?
I mean, that's what we expect. We expect to go out there and perform and do our jobs at a high level. I don't think it's surprising or does anything to my confidence. I always play out there confident, like I can make every play and can make every throw. So, I mean, I think it's a result of everyone doing their jobs and executing at a high level. And that's what we're trying to do for a full game.
All right, so it is one of those technical days. If you are still here, I appreciate it. I'm going to rerun the show, so if you've missed anything, that hopefully you will come back and catch the full show a little bit later. At any rate, so listen, I was letting you hear from Lovie Smith. You just heard from Davis Mills. I asked a question about whether or not he, it helped his confidence because he had a little bit of a, the passing game did a little better in the second half. He said that he's always, basically that he doesn't lack confidence. Listen, I am not debating whether he's confident or not. I know that what it looks like when he's kind of dancing around in the pocket, he doesn't look terribly confident. But I understand that you don't want to say, no, I'm not confident. So I get all of those things. At any rate, the Texans have a lot of work to do. There's a lot ahead of them. There's no question about it. And even Brandon Cooks, who of course signed a new contract in the offseason, has been, he's been very complimentary, if you will, in terms of Davis Mills. And let me say this. I know there's been conversations around the fact that Lovie has supported Davis Mills. What y'all expect him to do? That's the quarterback. That's the hand he was dealt. Davis Mills is your guy. Behind him, you got Kyle Allen and you've got Jeff Driscoll, who, if you'll remember, at one point last season had been converted to a air quote tight end, and now he's back as a quarterback. Anyway, he's got to come out and say, hey, he's our guy. What's he going to say? Nah, man, that kid can't play. We're never going to win with him here. I mean, that'd make him not a great head coach and probably wouldn't go over well in the building, not just in the locker room, but also in the front office. So I don't really know what you expect a coach to say when you ask him things like whose decision was to make a call. He's supposed to say it's him. The buck stops with him. I talked with Pep, the offensive coordinator, but it's my call. That's the point of having a head coach. The buck has to stop with him. So I don't know why there is so much consternation, if you will, about the fact that Lovie has been supportive of his players. Here's Brandon Cooks after the game on Sunday.
Yeah. From your perspective, what's the start of this season been like for you guys?
Frustrating. Close ones, as we all know. Pretty much this league comes down to close games. There's hardly ever any, blowouts, and the great teams find a way to be able to finish. And we haven't been able to do that. And today, we just simply, as an offense, didn't start fast. So past 4 weeks has absolutely been frustrating as a competitor, no question.
What was the difference, Brandon, in the first and second half for you guys offensively? You were able to do some things with the passing game.
Yeah.
You hadn't, quite frankly, seen that much of it.
Yeah, no, I think at the end of the day, that sense of urgency was there just because obviously what the score was. And we got to have that mindset, from the get-go. And like I said earlier, being able to start fast. But I think it's just all about a sense of urgency. That's why we was able to do some good things in that second half.
So that was Brandon Cooks. No one's super excited. There's not a whole lot of, enthusiasm in the building when you played 4 games and you haven't won one. They head to the Jaguars this week, a much improved Jaguars team. They are again underdogs as they head into Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. I just hope this team gets a win. I hope they get a win for Lovie and for Pep and, Damon and, the rookies like a Jalen Petrie and Stingley, who's going to come along, Kenyon Green, who had some moments on Sunday, penalty, unsportsmanlike, but that was just out of passion. I'm not terribly bothered by that, but I would like to see this team get a win, just if nothing else, so you guys don't run Lovie Smith and Pep Hamilton out of town, because there's some people in this world, and I get that Twitter is not the real world, that seem to think that Josh McCown is a better choice. Those people I don't even respond to. At any rate, you are listening to Chalk Talk with Kim. I am your host, Kim Davis. Thank you for bearing with me through all of the technical difficulties. I want to jump real quickly before we go into Rockets basketball. They had their first preseason game on Sunday night. They played the Spurs in Toyota Center. There was a big, 34-point win. It's preseason, so it doesn't mean anything. But one of the things that Coach Silas is looking for this team to do better this year is be a better defensive team. And so we saw some of that on Saturday night. Here was Coach Silas after the game. Sunday night after the game on Sunday.
It's the defense, obviously, that we've been concentrating on. And our help was good tonight. We forced them into threes, above the break threes. And our multiple efforts were really good on the defensive end. Obviously, the numbers show like we held them to 36 from 2 and 26 from 3. But yeah, it's a defensive effort. If we could do that, if we can finish plays with rebounds, then we can get out and run, and that's what we do best. So yeah, I'm super encouraged by our intensity on the defensive end, and then turning that defense into offense is important for us. Can you talk about
that was Coach Silas after the game on Sunday night. And here are the rookies, Jabari Smith and Tari Eason, Tari Eason, who also talked about what they did defensively.
I think just, my mentality never changes. The way I play the game never changes. And just the things I bring to the floor just kind of don't change. I'm always going to be in the right spot, get after it defensively, and just play and be one of the hardest playing dudes on the court. So I think that that translates at any level, and I'm just continue to do that.
Tari Eason, after the game on Sunday, they play again on Friday night. They play at home. They're playing Toronto. It's still preseason, but we'll get a chance to see a little bit more. We saw some great stuff from Alpi Şengün. We also saw Jabari Smith, the rookie, who is known for his defense, and people wonder, but is he going to be able to shoot it? He shot it pretty well on Sunday night. Again, it's still preseason, and so these games don't count, but what it does do is give us a chance to see what we might expect from these teams, from this team coming up. Before I get out of here, I want to just mention that the Houston Astros are headed toward postseason. They have, of course, clinched the best record in the American League, which means they will have home field advantage throughout the ALCS if they get that far. And depending on who wins in the National League, whether they will have, if they make it to the World Series, who would have home field in that series. Of course, if it's the Dodgers with the best record overall, the Dodgers would have home field throughout the entire postseason. The team lost at home last night. McCullers I won't say got off to a rocky start. The first pitch he threw just wasn't a great one, and the Phillies got out to a 1-0 lead on an early home run in the first quarter, but that was the only run McCullers gave up. The Astros didn't give him any support in terms of run support. The Phillies won that game 3-0, and the reason the Phillies were celebrating is because the Phillies clinched a playoff spot in the East. So the Astros have 2 more games. They play the Phillies again tonight, and then again tomorrow night on Wednesday, which is the last night of their regular season. They don't play again until next week in the American League Division Series. They open at home on October 11th, my sister Sylvia's birthday. That's next Tuesday. That's when they'll play again. So they'll have a bit of a break. Not always great to have that break, but they'll figure it out. It gives them a chance to get some guys healthy. So Dusty talked about how he's balancing playing guys so that they get some different people a chance to get some time, get some, at bats to kind of work some things out, like McCullers you wanted to see because, he'd been a little banged up. You wanted to see what he had and get other people a chance. They brought in Vasquez last night from Maldonado. You want to bring in some of your other players and other pitchers so they get a chance to not be so rusty by the time that you actually start postseason when all this stuff really matters. Tonight, 7:10 is the first pitch actually in Minute Maid Park. It's the Phillies and the Astros one more time, and then final game of the regular season is tomorrow night. So remember, listen, I believe today is 40 days until voting day, election day. If you have not registered to vote, you still have time. right? You still have time to register. I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to register, get registered today. You have 10 more days to register because you have to be registered 30 days before Election Day in the state of Texas. Make sure you get registered. Make sure you do your due diligence and figure out who to vote for. Vote your values. That's what I encourage you to do. Not my values, vote your values. Figure out the policies and the politicians that make the most sense for what matters to you and your family and your community and just the things overall that matter to you. Vote that way. But that just means you got to do a little bit of work and educate yourself so that you're ready to vote by being registered and being informed on Election Day or either early voting. You've got those options coming up. So I encourage you to do that. If you have not received the COVID vaccine, I'm encouraging you to do that too, because COVID is not gone. The pandemic has been declared, air quotes, officially over, but COVID is still among us, and it'll be quite some time before we really know what the long haul effects are from having COVID. So do your best to stay safe. Washing your hands, we should be doing that anyway. It's about to be cold and flu season. All of those things are helpful. Wash your hands, be mindful of where you are. If you're in super, super crowded spaces, you might want to pop on a mask, but at the very least, get vaccinated. So remember, do something kind for yourself and something kind for somebody else. I will see you next Tuesday. I keep wanting to say beyond the headlines. There must be something happening there. I'll see you back next Tuesday on Chalk Talk. And if you've missed some of today's show because of the technical problems we have, I encourage you to hop back on and watch the replay. All right. Dr. Montgomery, thanks to Baxter Montgomery for being on and sharing great information, really life-changing information. Go to montgomeryheart.com to get more information about all that he's doing, the upcoming gala, the opportunities where you can participate for no cost, or where you can go in person to the gala, but there are other events that you can go to in person that are free. All you have to do is register, and the gala is taking place at Rice University. And remember, you can get started, he said, for as little as $45 a month on a nutritional plan with an exercise, some direction about exercise to get you to start making some of those things to make a difference in your overall health and life. All right. So I hope all of those things are helpful. Take advantage of it. And remember, if there's something on your mind, something you'd like to see us talk about on Chalk Talk, let me hear from you. Send me your email, drop it in the chat if you're listening to the show or if you're listening to the replay. And remember to share the replay with your friends and family. And I would love for you to join the email list so I can send you updates about things we have coming up, going on with the show, and also going on in my business. Until next week, everybody, make it a great, great week. And remember, do something kind for yourself and do something kind for somebody else. Have a great week, everybody.